Okay, so welcome to the Penguin Books UK Hangout with Sylvia Day, author of the erotica novel Bared to You. Sylvia, would you like to just tell our readers about this book?
Well, Bared to You follows Eva Trammell, a 24-year-old young woman who's just moved to New York City. She starts a lovely new job at an advertising agency that happens to be housed in a building that's owned by the hero, Gideon Cross, and these two embark on a very passionate, steamy, erotic relationship, bringing all of their baggage and personal issues into it, which leads to a lot of angst as well as a lot of sexy times, and it's fun.
Yeah, I mean, it is absolutely amazing. Emma, have you got any questions for Sylvia at all?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's talking about it in the same breath as inevitably 50 Shades of Grey. Sylvia, how do you feel about that? Are you flattered by it, or do you think, would you prefer it to be viewed in its own right?
No, well, I mean, I think it gives people, a relatable way to understand what the book's about. Erotic fiction, as far as being mainstream, the way it is right now, is new. So, in that, it's a point of reference, and in that way, I think it's very handy. It doesn't bother me. I'm not upset by it or anything. They're two very different books, but still, you kind of get an idea of what you're stepping into when they say, this is like this stage.
Yeah. So, how long have you been writing for? Do you think it's just coincidence that your book and 50 Shades have both kind of come out and had a lot of good publicity at this time, or do you think, all this kind of, there has been loads of groundwork into making people more accepting, if you like, of erotic fiction?
Well, I think, it's always been a popular genre, but it was more of a niche genre. The readers who were aware of it, I mean, it's been hitting the New York Times and the USA Today as a genre for many years now. Most of my friends write erotic fiction. A lot of them, almost all of them, are New York Times bestsellers. So, there was the core group, a very large core group of audience, but now that it's in the media so much, which is what 50 Shades brought to it, was it got a lot of media attention, which brought media attention to the genre and introduced new people. A lot of people I hear from say that they haven't read a fiction book, since college. So that's a long time. Yeah. And it's bringing a lot of people in who don't self-identify as readers. They didn't really consider themselves to be. They are now. So, yeah, I mean, it's a much larger audience now, obviously. The difference in sales between one of my previous books and this book is huge, just because now there's a larger group of people who are looking for it.
Yeah.
I mean, all around, I think it's fabulous, and I think it's great that it's not just that one book. They're quickly moving on to other stories, so more of it's becoming available. The last time I went into, one of the major discount stores, they had a whole row of all different, which is great for someone like me who is an erotic reader myself. Now I can get it when I buy my laundry detergent. Before I would either have to order it online or make a special trip to the bookstore. I mean, now I can get it at the grocery store. I think that's wonderful for all of us.
Do you think Kindles and e-readers have helped with that? Because
absolutely.
Like,
I'm a big
people don't look at you
Kindle
funny
reader.
on the tube.
I'm a big Kindle reader, so for me, I love that it's instantaneous. I buy it right there it is. I can take it with me. I mean, when I came here, I think I have like 1,500 books with me, which I, of course, would never have been able to carry such a library, traveling across the country, over the ocean like I did to get here if I didn't have my Kindle. I think it helps, and a lot of women have said that before their husbands could tell what their book budget was because you could actually see the physical number of books that they were bringing home. Now when you buy it on your e-reader, there's really no way to tell that, you bought 20 books that day, right?
Yeah.
I think that's great.
Cool.
Do you think that perhaps with the kind of e-reading devices, that sales in this kind of genre may have shut up because men are reading it now as well? People can't see what they're reading. Right.
Well, I would imagine so. I mean, with the sales numbers, that can't be all women.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm sure. I think that's great, too, because, of course, we're hearing that it's spicing up people's sex lives. We like to say, well, it's spicing up women's sex lives, but I've heard from male readers who say it's done wonders for them, too. So, yeah, definitely. I know they're buying it. And, I think e-readers probably made it easier for them to do it. And, of course, the covers, having a very nondescript cover that's, pretty innocuous definitely has been a big advantage.
Definitely. And what's next for Gideon, then?
Oh, everything's next for him. The first book kind of dealt with, Eva has to deal with the things in his past. In the second book, he really has to deal with her stuff. She's met his family. Now he's going to meet her father for the first time. That's a very interesting, meeting there because her father is very protective. For him, he's only been in her life for a few years. She was mostly with her mother. So even though she's fully grown, for him, she's still his baby. So there's that. And, Gideon's a bit overwhelming, which, of course, her dad recognizes right off the bat. She also, she wasn't a virgin when she came into the relationship. She's had previous relationships, and some of her exes, come into the equation, and Gideon doesn't deal very well with that, as you can imagine. And, and Eva has to draw a line. There's only so long she's going to be willing to stay in the relationship without him talking about his issues. He's been able to kind of skirt that so far. But, there will come a point where, she's saying, I'm giving 100% to this, and you're giving maybe 50 because you're not telling me about your past. So all of that starts to really come up in the second book.
Yeah. And obviously it's publication date today.
Yes, very exciting. I'm so glad.
And so what have you been up to? Let's get our readers, what have you been doing to celebrate publication day?
Oh, it's been a whirlwind since I got here. We had a launch party last night. That was a lot of fun. Lots of champagne and goodie bags, and, the good time was had by all. I did a lovely signing at Ann Summers' store where I picked up a lot of ideas, a lot of inspirational ideas from some of the items they had there. That was great. And of course, being here in London is part of the whole process of launching the book. That's been a wonderful experience for me. I'd stay here for a couple of years if I could.
And Emma, have you got any more questions for Sylvia?
Yeah, I just think, like I said about Gideon, and there's other characters as well, like Carey, that we don't really know. We have allusions to him having a troubled past, so we're going to find out more about what happens to him. Yes,
absolutely. He's very entwined in Ava's life. That's one of the conversations that she has, is that, Carey is as much a brother to her as if he'd been born to her family. As far as she's concerned, he's going to be a part of her life for the rest of her life. So keeping him on track and, helping him, because he does a lot to help her. He's kind of her center, and she's the same way for him. So as she starts to see him spiraling a little bit, she pays more attention to what's going on with him and helps him out. And, he needs that. But part of his process, of course, is he needs to learn not to be so dependent on her to stay centered. That's something that's not always.
We've all got friends like that, haven't we?
Yeah. Exactly.
Cool. Are they based on anybody that you know? Are there any portraits in there, or?
There are, shades and shadows of different people that I've met in all the characters, and there's not a whole lot of one person in one character, but, anything from a smile to, the type of food they like to, a catchphrase, that all comes from, people that I've met. And, the things, little quirks that they had that I transferred to the characters, which is, a lot of fun.
Definitely. Oh, we've just had someone else join there. Hi, Michael. Michael, have you got any questions for Sylvia Day? Okay, we'll leave Michael and see if he can think of any in the future. In terms of your kind of reading preferences, Sylvia, what do you kind of tend to steer towards? Is it just erotica, or have you got, what's your favorite book? What kind of style do you?
Well, I love urban fantasy. I'm a big fan of Patricia Briggs. Nalini Singh is one of my favorite authors. I love her Guild Hunter series. But mostly, I read erotic romance. I mean, like most writers, I, write what I like to read. Books that are more graphic or more appealing to me. I get a more well-rounded picture of the characters. But I mean, I do read, I love Stephen King, which is way out, way outside the box there from romance. I try to, explore different things when I can, besides sticking with what I know, because there's so much out there. But, I have my favorites, J.D. Robb. Anytime she has a new book out, I have to go and, and buy another one. I love that Even Work series. So, they're not all erotic romance.
Yeah, and what advice have you got for aspiring writers?
Finish a book. That's the number one thing. I mean, it's easy to get started, and unfortunately, it's very hard to finish a book. So, I mean, the first step, I mean, I've had people who are like, I'm working on this story, and, I'm like 3 chapters into it. How do I sell it? But it's very difficult if you have never finished a book. I mean, that's really the first step. So once you get to that point, then you can start thinking about, what's next.
Do you remember where you were when you kind of decided to write Baird to You? Because J.K. Rowling always remembers, says she was on a train from Manchester when she thought of Harry Potter. Or did you have a similar kind of moment when you suddenly thought of these characters and I have to write them all down?
Yes. It was actually in November of 2010, and I was in New York. I was having a board meeting, and I was writing in my hotel room in the evening, and I was wrapping up 7 Years to Sin. And I was, as I came into the end, I love the story. I didn't want it to end. It's actually the longest historical I've ever written because I didn't want it to end. And as I was, rolling into the last, I finished the book while I was there on that trip. And I kept thinking, maybe I could kind of do like an alternate version of this story where instead of their past histories bringing them together the way it did with Jessica and Alistair, maybe, it could pull them apart. And I actually thought of it kind of like a choose-your-own-story thing, where it's like same story, same characters, but you write it, differently. But I knew there was no way for me to pitch that. No editor's going to be like, oh, yeah, write the same book over again. That's what we want, And because I'm contracted for historicals, I'm contracted for paranormals, I'm contracted for futuristics, the only genre that I'm not committed to with a publisher is contemporary. So, as I started thinking about, okay, how do I do the story the way, on the flip side of this story, it had to be contemporary to do it. So it all kind of started germinating at that point, and it kind of went on for the next few months, before I sat down and started writing it. Mm-hmm. But I can tell you, I was laying in a king-size bed in a hotel in Manhattan. Of course, the book is set in New York, possibly because that's where I was.
Yeah, no, you take inspiration from the things around you, don't you?
Yeah.
I like the idea of it being an adult, choose your own adventure. I used to love those books when I was a kid.
Yeah, aren't they fun? That's what I was thinking too. And a lot of times readers are like, is there a way to continue the story, that sort of thing. So, I mean, it was kind of there, could I just redo this story, different characters and have it just be a different, but, that I don't know. I don't know if you could do that. That'd be something probably you'd experiment with as an independent project rather than try to do, experiment to that level, on a larger scale. Might be a little risky.
So when's the next book in the trilogy coming out?
October.
Okay, cool.
Yes. The UK edition of Reflected in You is scheduled for October 11th. So it's really not too far. I know it seems far, but it's not really too far.
And when can we expect the final one then?
December.
Oh, okay, brilliant.
So it'll be really quick. Yeah.
Done by Christmas.
Yes. Just in time for Christmas. It'll be fun. I'm looking forward to having them all out because at this point I'm not sure, especially like you were talking about the comparisons between, 50 Shades and Baird 2. I mean, it's really hard because that's a completed trilogy, a very long trilogy. I mean, each one of those books are exceptionally long. And I've had just the one. So it's really, you can't really tell that, this, for somebody to say the stories are similar when it's only like a piece of the whole story. So, I'm looking forward to having all of the books out so people can see the full arc and, get a larger picture of
Yeah, just so many unanswered questions, aren't there, that you kind of think, right, okay, I need to know what happens next and what happens next. So it'd be good for people to be able to buy all three and just work their way through them.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And hopefully there's still some surprises, even though there's, it's kind of like Jeopardy when you have the questions.
Yeah. That's another good metaphor. I like it.
Yeah. How do you come up with the answers?
Fantastic. Well, have you got any final questions for Sylvia, Emma?
No, that's all I wanted to ask. So thank you very much.
Amazing. Well, one last question for you, Sylvia. Why should people that haven't picked this up yet purchase Bed to You?
Why should they pick it up?
Why should they pick it up?
Oh, because it's fun, and it will lead to more fun. And what more can you ask for than to have fun and have it lead to more fun?
Well, thank you very much, Sylvia, for doing this hangout, and we'll see you soon again, hopefully.
Yes, would love to.
Thank you, guys, for coming.